Life happens. We can control some things, a lot of things we can't. And find meaningful work. This comes from an author. Anyone heard of Malcolm Gladwell? Yeah? A couple of people blink. There's one book he's written. What are some of the other ones he's written? What the Dog Saw. I haven't read that one yet, but yeah, Outliers. Outliers. Oh, you should read that one. I really encourage you to read that one. I actually listened to the book first on a CD. The whole Outliers book started with a hockey example, and I thought, this doesn't fit. And then I found out he was born in England and raised in Elmira, of all places. Right? When I was at grad school at Waterloo, that's where we started playing hockey on Friday afternoons, pick up hockey. So very, very interesting book. And he talks about this, finding meaningful work. And it's meaningful because you're passionate about it. If you're good at it and you like it, it's probably part of your calling in life. Learning from others. How do you get there? Talk and listen and listen and listen and listen. And sometimes you need to learn some social graces because, again, people are all different. I had some training recently on intercultural differences between Americans and Germans. And the one message that came out very clearly was that Americans, Canadians too, we tend to sandwich messages. If I need to tell you, if you've given a presentation or you've run a project and I need to tell you, you need to fix some things here, the culture in North America is I'm going to sandwich that between, oh, good job, that was a very nice presentation, but you need to fix some stuff. Oh, but it was okay. We sandwich, right? We sandwich, good, good, and here's the message, which is really the brunt, which says, guess what, you need to fix something. Germans aren't big on bread on this message. Now, they are big on bread to eat, but they just say, you know what, here's what's wrong with your presentation. They'll tell you that. And they don't do it in a way that's offensive. In their culture, they expect that. They expect that. Why would you beat around the bush and feed me some bread here on the sides of this sandwich and say I did such a good job when you really want to tell me, guess what, you need to fix some stuff. So those are cultural sensitivities that come into play. So the main spiel is this. As you wander around in life, first of all, starting with your academic careers here, that for many of you is coming to a close, unless you go to grad school, right? You can put that on your map here. You're going to get input from all kinds of sources, but then you need to make a decision. A lot of us get stuck on getting the input. So I know lots of things and I've got lots of options and I can't stop at 3. You know, Plaumann said put 3 or 4 of these and I've got 50 things I would like to do in my life. You need to decide. You can't do everything, anything, but not everything. So you need to pick, what are my faves up here? What do I really want to do? The top 3 or so? Decide, and once you decide, then you need to go and go ahead and apply for grad school or make that appointment with somebody in the bank to talk to them to say, you know, yeah, I really want to be a bank teller. I want to be a bank manager. I want to do something. And then only what you do and how you do it counts. There is life after Laurier, but it's yours. So make it a good one. And I quit. Anybody have any questions? Stones to throw? Yes, sir.
Yeah, what were some of the obstacles that you encountered in your life that made your life arrow like that? How did you overcome them?
Some of the obstacles. If I go back to, well, first of all, just getting out of graduate school was a real challenge for me. I was mentioning earlier that that the summer, first of all, I had a horrible project. I was doing organic chemistry. Synthetic organic chemistry is only for those that love pain, right? It's the way it is. And if you're a masochist, then okay, go for it. And if you're not, then do something. Go into physical chemistry where you measure stuff and model stuff. Oh, I'll tell you. Violence in the classroom. But the fun comes in solving the problems. So organic chemistry is really cool, but to go to graduate school in organic chemistry is a challenge. It's tough. If you're up for the challenge, do it. Anyways, I ran into one of these things. When you're doing natural product synthesis, here's the target. You have it or you don't. And for the first few years, I did not. I had all these steps along and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, Ken. I had all these steps along there, and I don't know how many co-op students we had come in and make intermediates for me because we just kept running out of starting material. We just kept running out. And so we had all these intermediates synthesized, and towards the end, of course, stuff did not work. So what happened, I actually did my PhD with a professor named Rodrigo, who taught at Laurier for years and years, and did an adjunct professorship at Waterloo. And so I went to work for him there because he had hired me a couple of summers to work for him in the lab and synthesize these intermediates for his postdocs. And so we got to the end of this problem, and he just couldn't understand it. He said, Heinz, I do not know what's going on. There must be some kind of side reaction. And so we took a look at that. Together we looked at it and we said, you know, if there's a side reaction happening, maybe there's an intermediate we could trap. And we did. We trapped this intermediate, and all of a sudden, his lights went on. Not mine. I wasn't that smart enough. But his lights went on, and he said, you know, this is the framework of a whole different family of natural products. And within about 3 months, we had 7 on the table. But that was at the end, right? So it was 3 years of pain getting there. So, but the thing is that it's still very, very rewarding. But in the meantime, I had become so frustrated, I said, you know, I don't know if I can endure the rest of this PhD. So I started looking for work, right? So I got my input and decided, you know, if I'm meant to finish this PhD, then I guess it'll work. If it's not, well, at least I'll have a job. And I was offered a job. And then what they did, they said, look, here's the starting date. We need you to start, I think it was May 1st. And then all of a sudden, these things started to click. And I said, gosh, you know, I don't want to quit grad school with a master's degree if I have a PhD in my hand. So negotiating and talking and all this kind of stuff, I wound up getting a PhD coming out of this. So that was a tremendous obstacle. Another obstacle that happened, we were living in Sarnia. I say we, my wife and I, and during the course of our first few years there, 3 kids came along. Yeah, that's our fault, yeah. That's a good point to laugh, right? Really good. Anyways, Sarnia is a nice small town. It's not far from Detroit or London. So if you must have big city stuff, it's available. But it's a nice small town, and for raising kids, it was a very nice place. And we thought, yeah, we will probably retire here. And then the company we were working for, Polysar, well, business happens too. They were taken over in a hostile takeover and taken apart. All of a sudden, my wife wound up working for BASF because she was in a division that was sold to them. I was recruited away from Polysar to join BASF, and the rest of Polysar, part of it went to Bayer, or Bayer you might say, part of it went to Nova and just got scattered. And so all of a sudden my wife and I are both working for this German company, and they noticed the name was a little not quite so Anglo-Saxon. They said, do you speak any German? I said, yeah, from my parents I learned some German. Would you like to go to Germany? Move to Germany. And the thing is, it comes back to being a little courageous on some of this stuff. You can do just about anything for 2 years. And we said, okay, sure, we'll go for 2 years. So we did. Except while we were there, they moved that group in Sarnia to North Carolina. So first of all, the obstacle was, do you want to take your family to Germany or not? That's an adventure. I have German in my background, so for me, I'd say, I could go visit my uncles and some of these other relatives and stuff like that. For me, a neat opportunity. My wife was born and raised in Owen Sound. She's a farm kid. Spoke no word of German. Why would she want to put 3 kids in a plane and say, okay, I'm going to be home with these kids that don't know German and try to get along in the neighborhood? So we as a family, that was a big obstacle for us to overcome. And I'm nothing but proud of how she adapted, learned the language. In fact, when we came back, we didn't come back to Sarnia, we moved to Charlotte. In Charlotte, she actually taught German at the high school my kids went to. Cool. Just absolute admiration for her. What happened after that? Well, I'd worked in our emulsion polymers group in Europe, in Sarnia, then in Charlotte for 5 years. And there was a point in my career and life, my early 40s, I said, well, I can stay in this job forever, ride it until I retire, or maybe do something else. And that's when I got a phone call from Germany, and they said, you wouldn't, in fact, the way it was worded was something like this, you wouldn't like to come back to Germany, would you? So we talked about it at home at dinner that night, came home, and I said it exactly that way, would you guys like to go back to Germany? And my wife said, no, well, that part of Germany we know already. And I said, no, it's former East Germany, a totally different site. Oh, wow, we've never been there before. So she became excited. My kids almost fell out of their chairs. Have a good time and just send money, right? We are not moving back to Germany with you guys. Well, they did, and the obstacle there was for us to manage them through the trauma, let's say, of relearning German. They missed 5 years of German development, 5 years of their academic school system, and it's a little different than here. So they missed that, and they had a lot of ground to catch up, and we had to support them through that. The deal we made with them, I'll say, is just pass. And they all did. Oh, by the way, when we were in Charlotte, a fourth daughter came along. We have 4 daughters. A fourth daughter, that's an obstacle in itself, a big challenge. 4 daughters, good grief, what's wrong with this guy? A chemist with reproducible experiments, come on. It's pretty good, actually. 4 daughters, that's great. So anyway, she came along in Charlotte. She's 13 now and an absolutely fanatical soccer player. So the challenge there was managing this family of 4 kids in former East Germany, totally different culture than former West Germany, and trying to fit them into this. There was a lot of, I'll say, social pressure on us as a family there. First of all, people they knew when we were moving in and the moving trucks were unloading our stuff, you could see people in the apartment building across the street. They were kind of looking out the window and saying, what are those guys bringing from the States? You know, they were looking to say, gosh, he brought a basketball net and all that stuff. So there was some social pressure. There was a lot of pressure on our kids in school. I remember one of our daughters came home and they said, you know, they were asking why we would move from Charlotte to Schwarzheide was the name of this little town, between Dresden and Berlin. Berlin is beautiful. Dresden is beautiful. Schwarzheide was a hole in the ground. Right? It was in the middle of former brown coal mining area. Yeah, heavy industry. Anyways, it was only half an hour on the Autobahn down to Dresden. So the challenge for them was, you know, we were asked in school why we would move here from Charlotte. And the answer was, well, my dad's a manager at BASF. Oh, so your dad's a manager. We get it. Can we talk to you? You know how a lot of German kids learn English? Videos, rock videos, music videos. So it's MTV. They learn all these accents and they say, where'd you learn that? Oh, and they'll just name an artist. They say, well, Pink singing this song, you know, or Madonna singing this song, or so-and-so singing this song. Okay. English there is taught very differently than in North America because it's British English, first of all. So our kids would come home and say, you know what the trunk on a car is called? It's a boot. What? That's what they call it in England. A few other adventures, just part of that. First of all, in foreign countries, in a lot of foreign countries, they start very early with foreign languages, much earlier than we do. And during our time there, my second daughter, sorry, the one that you saw in the picture running the race with me, Heidi, came home and said, well, I have to decide what my next foreign language is going to be. She was already taking English as a foreign language, taking French, and now you have a choice between Latin or Russian. And it's required that you take this extra language. And of course, the Germans, their school system is such that if you want to study pharmacy or chemistry or anything like that, or law, you must take Latin. You must have Latin in your background. Of course, we didn't care at all about that. So we said, why don't you try Russian for a year? So it was an absolute laugh. Heidi's very good at learning things like that, picked up stuff. She'd learn the alphabet, the language, and she'd come home and, you know, and say, как поживаете, you know, stuff like this. Это лампа, you know, and she'd come in and just blabber away in Russian. We would say, Heidi, can you tell us what this is? And so it was a challenge for them to get into a system like that. Moving to Michigan then was a different challenge, a little easier because it was a return to North America, but it's still Michigan. It's not North Carolina, and it's not Ontario. But does that answer your question? So, oh, sorry, I did come back. I didn't forget that you asked. So there are a lot of things. And when I look at it, I can say, what a ride. This has been a tremendously interesting ride. And it takes a little bit of courage to say yes to some of these things. It takes some courage to say, you know, yeah, I'm going to go talk to the people who are going to grad school. I'm going to go talk to some prospective employers. I'm going to write Heinz an email with my resume attached. In fact, I can tell you what I will do is write back and say you have to go to our webpage because I can't do anything with a resume. In fact, this is the address that will get it to me, but you really need to write to BASF Canada. But stuff like that. So it takes just a little bit of courage to say, you know what? I'm not going to be sitting here in that chair for the next umpteen years. I need to do something else with my life. Anybody else have any questions? I'm sorry I deliberated so long and blabbered on that one. No? Thank you for a Friday afternoon. Great. Thank you so much, you guys.